Welcome to Inside Albania with me, Alice Taylor. This week I have two very different topics for you. I'm speaking to Zef Mazi. He was the chief negotiator for EU, for Albania. Between 2020 and 2022, he was the one involved in moving Albania along the EU integration process. We're going to be discussing the outcome of the recent elections in terms of, can Albania join the EU by 2030? What needs to be done? What hurdles and obstacles are there along the way? I also took some time out of the studio to meet with a local artist, Jeton Cini. He is doing a really interesting project where he is painting historical figures from Albanian history, but these are going to be displayed in the centre of Brussels this summer. Zef, welcome to Inside Albania. Thank you for finding the time to speak to me today.
Pleasure.
Now, I want to sort of start at the beginning here. During your time as the EU's chief negotiator for EU accession during 2020 to 2022, what was the situation then during those 2 years?
Well, it's now 5 years have passed since that time, and we started from creation of the negotiating group, because there was none. After the establishment of the group, it was a decision of the Council of Ministers to establish the group. We started with meeting of the group and individual meetings with each member of the group, including to get to know from them how they understand the integration process and what has been done in each of the line ministries, if something has been done before, to introduce to them the complex situation in which we will be moving forward towards the EU. So it was a kind of a 1 month study course for myself, for my small team of maximum 6 people that had to deal with the entire range of the chapters and the entire line ministries, including 5 institutions that are independent, so-called institutions such as the Economic Authority, the Procurement Directorate, the Statistics. These are independent institutions. So I had to talk with all of them and to get to know as much as was possible at that time. And after this briefing from all the members of the negotiating team, we set up the first meeting of the entire group. It was a long process of more than 4 weeks, as I said earlier. And in the first meeting, we kind of laid out what is it that we need to do? How do we start?
It's a massive task.
Everybody has to, it's hard, where everybody has to be on board, because they have to understand first the difficulty of the problem,
yes, the
complexity of the issue, and that the responsibilities that lie with each of the line ministries. Fortunately, the decision of the Council of Ministers at that time included in the negotiating team all the deputy ministers of the line ministries. This was extremely important, and then I had a long talk with the Prime Minister at that time before the decision was taken, because in the course of the process, it is important that those that are responsible for each of the line ministries would be able to take political decisions, because the moment would come that it would not be very convenient or very comfortable for them to ask somebody else on the phone for this and for that. They have to know where are the limits for the political decision purposes. And so after that was set up in the first meeting, we continued working then individually with each of the line ministries, with each of the deputy ministers. There are some ministries that we had 2 deputy ministers in the group, including a ministry that is big enough to have 3. So we had 3 deputy ministers in the group, because each of the chapters has so many sub-chapters, and each of the sub-chapter has under sub-chapter, whatever the right term might be for that. So we started from scratch, And in the course of the 2 years that I was there, actually 28 months, we were able to move from the first establishment of the group into, within 18 months, into EU, the European Commission practically agreeing in the report in October 2021 that Albania has met the conditions to move on to the next stage, which was the organizing of the first intergovernmental conference. And so we were very happy to reach that target within 18 months.
Do you believe, the final decision, whenever that may be for Albania joining the EU, obviously a unanimous vote is needed. Do you agree with this concept of a unanimous vote when it comes to the accession process, particularly as the union is expanding?
That is in the treaty of the EU that every decision must be taken by consensus. And there has been some talks within the EU. Unfortunately, the EU has a very big glass house. And when you are in the glass house, you can see through, but don't throw stones because people won't understand.
Yes.
And in the case of the EU at the time, the issue of Bulgaria and with Northern Macedonia was at some point taken beyond the certain limits of acceptability in terms of politics. Why should we have to wait for a period, in an indefinite period of time, or 6 months or near, I don't know how long, when it is clear that there is a directive in the European Union. So there is a directive which says that the issues, bilateral issues of member states, whatever these bilateral issues might be, must not be put on the table of the 27. It's written, it's a directive. Never implemented.
Yeah, but like many things. But I worry when it comes to that final vote, whether people say, oh, Greece, they'll never let in Albania, they'll wield that power until the last moment and then they may or they may not. Do you think this is realistic, or do you think it's people just being a bit paranoid?
In my assessment of the situation, I've been in touch with the Greek delegation and the Greek diplomats in Tirana, the ambassador, and visited Athens a couple of times. The issue of Greece with regard to Albania is one that we all know.
Yes.
That is very, very dear to the Greek authorities, but that's not a line that has started now. It's a long issue, the issue of the minority. And it's a long and complicated issue, but the point is that whether Greek wishes to use it or not, actually the issue of minorities is included in the position, in the position of the EU towards Albania. The first intergovernmental conference, we submitted our Albanian national position, and the EU submitted theirs. The EU position was approved at midnight by silence procedure in Brussels. And that included, within the last 24 hours, one sentence about the minorities in Albania, which is, it's okay. But it's included there. And so it will be there now all the time, between now and when we join.
But,
the point is that...
Sorry.
I understand the question. The question that's linked with the minorities is more a political issue, that it's really a matter of major concern, because the Council of Europe has a convention on the minorities, and that's the highest moral document, international document on the treatment of national minorities. Unfortunately, Greece has not ratified it. I don't know whether they have signed it or not, but normally yes, but they don't recognize the existence of minorities in their own country. Though the problem is not whether we have to deal with this issue. The minority law in my country, in our country, includes some 12 bylaws that needed to be approved. Albania, during my time, had approved 9 out of 12. And so the problem was with these 3 bylaws. But eventually, the government might have approved these laws by now. I don't know. But if these 3 bylaws would not have been approved, or are not approved yet, there will be you. It will be used by Greece. And the new methodology, as we are talking about it, the new methodology includes a reversibility clause, which means that any member state, in case of conviction that a certain candidate country has not made enough progress or sufficiently acceptable progress or has slided back, the whole process can be revoked together
tricky,
with Commission. So it's very tricky, and because it may be used properly or it may be misused.
Of course. I had another question as well. I asked this question to a minister recently. I won't mention their name. And they went, oh, I hadn't thought of that. As far as I'm aware, still, technically there is a state of war between Greece and Albania. And correct me if I'm wrong, Albania cannot accede to the EU if it's in a state of war with another country within the EU. Is that correct? Because I asked a minister and they went, oh gosh, I don't know. I need to check.
That's a complicated issue that comes from 1942, 43. There are two laws actually. One is law on the war, and there's another law on the property of those that have been included within that category of the law. So if one is abrogated or the other is abrogated, the problem is the mechanisms to implement these laws are in force in Greece. So I'm not sure these are valid or non-valid. You have to talk with the international practical lawyers on this issue, on human rights issue, and on the law issue of war situations between one or another country.
Yeah.
So even if those two laws, I think one is law 1242 and one is 1270. Maybe my numbers may not be correct, but I have written an article about this, so you can find it. I've written an article publicly about it. So even if these two laws are abrogated, which may happen, right? Either they have to be abrogated with the entire package, that it includes all the bylaws to implement those laws, or it's useless to abrogate the laws. Because you may abrogate the laws, but not the bylaws.
So something
that's very tricky.
They need to pay some attention to this quite quickly. Now, these legal obstacles aside, hiccups perhaps, when you hear the target of joining the EU, ascending to the EU by 2030, let's look at it from the perspective of a merit-based, not a political decision or a political push, but merit-based. Do you think it is feasible?
Because of merit-based forgetfulness on the part of the EU, we were left waiting for quite some time.
Yes.
So merit-based has been and is the mantra of the EU, but I'm not sure it applies regularly.
Yes.
So when you have all these dates, like years, 2027, 2030, I don't know where they come from and what kind of calculations are made to launch these dates. You know, when you have negotiations, or I'm not very familiar with the determination of the word negotiation, because with the EU you don't negotiate, you talk with them. There'll be talks practically. If you talk about the strict definition of the word negotiation, I understand it in the following way. The EU wants to get the maximum of concessions from us, from any candidate, and any candidate, Albania in this case, wants to get most of the benefits from it. So at some point, you either talk like this and meet at some point, or you talk past all the time.
Yes.
So whether now you have to do with negotiations or talks, it's different interpretation, mind you. So we will have talks. When I look at the enormous work that has been done, and eventually it has continued, but I don't know at what level. We're looking at the 34 chapters, not 35, but the 35th chapter is a Basque chapter. Maybe, Alice, you probably are aware, you know how many pages are to be negotiated?
Thousands. I forgot. Yeah, I forgot.
80,000.
Yeah.
More than 80,000 pages out of 170,000 pages of the acquis communautaire, which includes all the laws, all the decisions of the European Union courts.
But this is why they wanted to use AI to do it, wasn't it? To align the acronyms. ChatGPT, can you help us join the EU? You know.
GDP, can you help him? I want to fly to Mars. And there are borders within which you can use it and
Yeah.
you cannot use it. Negotiations with the EU, like with any international organization, are a matter of deep knowledge
Yes.
of how the winds blow in the corridors of Brussels. What is the temperature in each country at which particular
Yes.
time? How these evolve, change, amend according to circumstances. In the current political situation in the world, the global geopolitics of the world, now we are practically living in not only a period of insecurity, but we are living under the shadows of, we don't know what happens next. So looking at the enormous work that needs to be negotiated, each candidate country has to have a very robust team for every single chapter. And each of the teams must have sub-teams, because each of the chapters has now subdivisions.
Yes.
And to have these, you have to have a combination of three elements. First, you have to have good political instincts.
Yes.
They have to be developed at a very high level. And this comes with the knowledge of the situation within the countries. This is very important. You can talk with the Commission. You can move forward with the Commission. The Commission might agree and might say, now you have completed this, but they have to send it to the Council for approval. And you have to have the approval of 28 countries for each of the chapters. So it's very complicated.
Yes.
And so you have to have this in all the line ministries, and you have to have absolutely strong, highly experienced, with a long experience of political negotiations in international bodies. You have to have a very solid team of diplomats.
Yes.
And this solid team of diplomats need to be accompanied by solid teams of experts in each of the fields.
Highly technical.
Because none of the talks, you mentioned the word technical, none of the talks with any international organization, whichever you would talk to, whichever you want to refer to, none of the talks are technical. With every international body, talks are political. Underneath, you have political interests or economic interests. It's absolutely so. So when you talk about these are technical negotiations, I am very skeptical to accept that kind of definition. There is no such thing as technical talks. Underneath is always politics and economic interests.
I've been reporting on the EU for many years. I was working for a big media in Brussels for many years as well. And I've talked to people, my colleagues, and also observed myself. There has been a change in the EU's approach. You know, prior to 2022, I would have said 2030, absolutely no chance. You know, you wouldn't even catch someone from the Commission saying it on record. But things have changed, you know, and some of the comments made by people from the Commission on the record and off the record, it seems that if it's up to be a political decision, it could be possible. You know, were Bulgaria ready? Were Romania ready? Are there countries in the EU at the moment who don't meet the requirements? Absolutely, you know. I think if it's a purely politically motivated decision, it could happen, like chicken and egg sort of situation. But then I've also heard that the Prime Minister promising sort of 2030 has upset some people in Brussels as well. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
When I see the composition of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen number 2.0, I think, and what I've heard and read from them, it looks much of the same old style. I'm not surprised that anything new I hear, except for some enthusiastic, cheerful commissioners visiting capital cities of countries and keeping candidate countries warm.
Yes.
But at a safe distance. Always at a safe distance.
With a caveat.
One day you will join.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing to say whatever it's said. Prime Minister might say this, another minister might say that. The point is, politicians have one objective in life normally, to be elected. And the second objective in life is to be re-elected. So in an election campaign, for whatever political objective, politicians talk about if I'm elected, I'll reduce taxes, I'll reduce inflation, I reduce this, I'll do that, and none is done, or 50%
Because
is
no one
done.
ever
If it's
asks
50%
them,
done,
how are you going to do it? Where are you going to make up for that deficit in the budget? Where are you going to find that money? You know, nobody asks these questions.
Complicated. It's complicated. It's extremely complicated. So you've got to get to the root causes of it. The root causes of it are, we need to sit down and make a proper assessment of our forces. Don't stretch your legs more than your carpet, whatever. How the saying goes. It's very delicate issue to give dates and then not keep promises. The EU, for example.
That's what I was going to say.
The EU has since I was ambassador at that time. In 2003 was the Salonika summit, and in that summit they agreed that the Western Balkans place is in Europe. They avoided to say in European Union for quite some time, as if Brussels decide where my people live.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And where my people has lived before and will live in the future. In the recorded history, my people have lived in that part of the Balkans for over 2,000 years more than that, since 5 centuries BC or 6 centuries BC, whatever. And we will continue to live here with or without the EU. Yes. The point is that they made big political mistakes, and it's a trick. They said the place of these countries is in Europe. What do you mean?
Thank you.
That's so kind of you. Can these bureaucrats decide where my people's place is?
Yes.
I mean, so again, when I hear all these things, makes me a little bit perplexed.
This is one of the things the Prime Minister...
I understand why they say it.
In 2022 in Brussels, when there was this whole palaver going on with North Macedonia, and I really liked, he went there and he just sort of said, you know, you need us, you know, as much as we need you. You know, it was always like the EU was sort of expecting him to bend down and be like, oh, please accept us, please, please. And he was just like, you guys have got I'm paraphrasing, you guys have got so many problems. You need to sort them out. You need us as much as we need you, you know? And he was right, you know? He kind of put them back in their place slightly.
The EU actually plays the whole game as if only the countries that want to join would benefit. It's a two-way street.
Absolutely.
EU will also benefit. They will have a bigger space,
more power,
bigger transportation possibilities, more power. They will have more democratic spaces around the continent because of this oasis that does not exist within the EU parameters, but it is within its borders, surrounded by EU countries. And even the word enlargement is not the appropriate word. It was used 25 years ago when it extended from 12 to 15 members. Inclusion would be the right word, perhaps, but not enlargement, because borders are not changing.
No.
And so if EU considers that only candidate countries would benefit from joining the EU, they are not being truthful to their words. And this has been a continued line. With Western Balkans. Western Balkans have not been told the truth for decades.
It was keeping them
the truth can be found.
You know, and
the truth can be found out, but one has to work hard for it.
Now,
people are waking up and understanding gradually.
And this kind of ties into my next question. Albania and Kosovo have the highest EU approval rates in Europe, more than EU member states, for now anyway. And we don't really have much of an anti-EU rhetoric in media, in public. There are, of course, some people who pipe up and say the EU is a waste of time. I hope we never join. But this is rare. When you compare to some other EU countries, the UK, for example, previously, and many other EU countries as well, they have anti-EU parties. They have growing sentiment, you know, EU skepticism. Do you think this is a risk in Albania if things continue slowly? But also, I also kind of feel that Albanians don't necessarily really understand what EU membership means for them, other than, oh, I get to, you know, travel more easily, perhaps. Do you think the problem's there? When we join, eventually it's going to be a bit of a shock for people?
You put so many elements within your introductory part before the question. Number one that I recall what you said is linked with the process itself. The process itself has been never-ending for 3 decades. I recall in 1993, I was serving as ambassador in a country at that time when I got a telegram. One of your countrymen, Sir Leon Britton, was vice president of the Commission, visited Albania, 1993. And for the first time, we told him in our meetings that we would like to apply and to join the EU. And I got his telegram and read it. And his reply was, wait for a little bit more. It's too early for you to do that. So it started 32 years ago. The process has been dragging on so long that it has become kind of an abstract notion. And when you have a notion like this, with an organization, with a union, call it whatever you, grouping, unity, union, when you move from one postponement to the next forever postponement, there's something wrong. It could be wrong on the part of candidates that have to work a little bit more to fulfill what is asked of them to do. But it has to come also from the EU. And the EU makes promises, but never keeps the promises. So if you cannot keep the promise, you better not make these promises. Avoid promises. And that will be fair. But again, the architecture within the EU is such that it's hard to find unity. And if there is a unity within the union on issues, when you read the conclusions, it's the lowest common denominator. This reflects definitely the different angles from which countries look at the issues, the different angles from which they analyze the issues, and the outcome will be either beneficial to all, and to be beneficial to all, it's difficult to conceive what is that general line that would be beneficial for a country of 400,000 people than a country of 90 million people.
Big differences.
Depends.
And culture as well, and
culture,
history,
traditions.
So much that's just.
And so when to come back to the other point, when you said whether it's a higher rating in Albania and Kosovo about the EU, it comes from a lot of propaganda, not propaganda. The right way propaganda. I'm using the term not negatively.
Positive
but a lot of rhetoric about it, without explaining what it means.
And this is a fault of the EU as well.
This is the fault of the country. I'm talking about my country. I'm not talking about EU. The country goes on TV with one individual or another individual, and that's it. Because of politics. You've got to work hard on it, explain, move into districts, into cities, talk to business communities, talk to Chamber of Commerces, talk to media, academicians, agriculture cooperatives to be reestablished, whatever it is. If you don't have such a support from the population, tomorrow it's going to be very difficult, and there might be a lot of frustration.
But that's what I said earlier. We hit them like a ton of bricks, when we join, and oh my God,
I formulated that earlier. Said, can we endure? Can we hold the weight of the European single market?
This is.
If yes, fine. But I'm not very sure we will be able to do that.
No.
For the moment.
Not for now.
So if it has to be very clear at some point, instead of buying wherever in the streets there, or in the small shops, or
I buy in the streets. I buy all my veg on the street.
Right. What I want to say is this: instead of buying randomly wherever you can around cities in Albania, meat, yogurt, milk, butter, margarine, whatever, will cost less to be flown in from Copenhagen to Tirana or from the Netherlands than to buy there. Because of the phytosanitary. See what I mean?
Yes.
So then they will go bankrupt. Either they have to restructure and be ready to face what will come. But to face what will come, you need to understand first. And to understand, you need to have explanations how it works. So it's a process that not only we have to go through a referendum when we would have to join the EU at some point, whenever it will be. But also 27 member states will have to go through popular referendums to approve, in addition to parliamentary approval in each 27 countries. So it's going to be a bit complicated. And to have such a process that is with so many people in 400 working days for 2 years seems to be more like kind of a dream, kind of delusional, a little bit, kind of dream, kind of impossible, kind of, I don't know. The best would be, please give dates that are doable, that are reachable.
Better to give one further away and, surprise, surprise, you do it earlier than to promise something that can't be achieved or may not be achieved. Now,
I agree.
I did go off script a bit, but I do have a question I want to ask you, and maybe it's not strictly under your remit, but I wanted to ask you about Kosovo as well, because Kosovo is desperate to join the EU. It's another country which has extremely high popularity. They trust the EU. It seems like it's never going to happen. They've made their application, but nothing has happened since then. What do you think? Is it ever going to happen for political reasons, for geopolitical reasons, or is it just a no chance situation at the moment?
Kosovo is a particular case, but let's look at the 6 countries. The 6 countries can be divided into 3 layers. The first layer is Montenegro and Serbia. They opened negotiations, one in 2012 and the other in 2013. Out of 34 chapters, 35 chapters, Serbia has opened 22 chapters and closed only 2. Montenegro has opened 32 chapters and closed only 5. The second layer is Albania and North Macedonia. We have had 3 intergovernmental conferences so far. The third one took place yesterday on the opening of chapter 3. And North Macedonia is still a little bit in the waiting room because of the political situation within the country. And then you have the third layer, which is Bosnia and Albania. Bosnia has been given some sort of candidate status, in my view, but due to political problems within the two components of the country, with the views of Dodik and Republika Srpska, it doesn't seem quite okay to continue on the same path. And Kosovo, for whatever reason, the EU has not granted a candidate status yet. They're operating on the basis of association and a stabilization agreement. In the meantime, we have the political problems there to form the government after the elections. So, it's a combination of both.
And non-recognition from member states as well.
We'll come to that. Sometimes their own problem that they have not put house together, and a little bit of EU problem. Because within the EU, we have 5 countries that do not recognize yet. And EU has failed to convince these countries. The reasons why these countries have not recognized are known, but EU has not been in a position nor had the power to impose anything on any country, including Greece, when they played that with North Macedonia. Poor North Macedonia had to change everything. They changed even the name, they changed even the constitution, and still EU was not able to. EU was not able to impose anything on, or the same with Bulgaria at the time. Now, all are these friendly countries with Albania. I have no problem. I'm not criticizing. I'm saying because of the EU intricacies within the house, this complicates the matter and this complicates the process. So I'm not sure whether we could use the word never for with regard to Kosovo. The day might come. Hopefully, they will put the house together. It's like in our case, in the case of Albania. When you talk about integration into the EU, it has to be very clearly explained to people, starting from political parties and leaders of the political parties. They all claim, I'm doing this, my party is doing this. I recall I was, again, years before, in 2009, when Albania joined NATO, I was ambassador to London, to UK at that time. And the party in power was the Democratic Party. But when we sat at the first meeting of NATO, it was not written Democratic Party, nor will it be written Socialist Party in the case of Albania joining EU tomorrow.
It's the country.
It will be only Albania, period.
Yeah.
It's the country. And this process, therefore, is above parties, is is above parties, all parties, non-party process.
Yes.
Whichever of these three, if these three components are not kept in mind well by all political parties, by all leaders, then this process is about the country. It's not about parties. A party in power drives the process forward. Another party forces change power. Again, the process will be driven forward by whoever comes to power. Therefore, it is very important, I go back to a point that I raised earlier, that we have structures. This situation, without a proper, solid ministerial structure on its own, with a solid team of at least 100 people, with 5 big departments for each cluster, and highly experienced diplomats, technicians, whatever, all together, a team with a ministry on its own that will be able to sustain itself despite political changes in government.
Yeah, this is.
If you change staff every 3-4 years, the process will suffer.
Yes, will implode.
It will negatively impact on the process. You have to have sustainability of the staff, because this process goes long. For every chapter, you negotiate for years.
Yes.
And if I leave an office and another guy comes, it will take some time for him to get to know where we are and what are the intricacies. So then we need to have a very solid structure. This requires people at the central level, people at the line ministries level, people at the country, at the local level, and this should go harmoniously, without hiccups. If it doesn't go harmoniously at this moment, there will be more than hiccups tomorrow.
Yes.
So I'm saying because I feel the process needs to move forward.
Yes.
And proclaiming that we have opened this chapter and that chapter does not mean that we have closed one. They are two different processes. Opening a cluster is a different thing from closing one chapter. The point is, we can open clusters. The more clusters you open, the more difficulty we will have to encounter, because we have to have in parallel so many teams set up.
Resources.
More resources, more people, more whatever. So
closing them is the important thing, not opening.
It's absolutely, and to close one chapter, you have to have the approval of 27 countries. Because everything goes by consensus.
Yes.
And what we hear in the recent couple of years, that the EU will have to go through its own reforms before getting on new members.
Yes.
If this reform of the EU does not decouple, I'm using the same word, if it doesn't decouple from the integration, these are two parallel lines. They can go in parallel, because we cannot impact on the reform process that eventually the EU talks about it for so long and doesn't do anything. And practically they want to talk about Article 7 of the treaty.
Yes.
And and the Article 7 of the treaty is very complicated. It's about suspending the voting rights of a nation when a nation has been proven for a long time that has been in violation of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. But it cannot expel members. Only members can expel themselves, like in the case of the UK. They implemented Article 50.
Yes.
And I expelled myself, and the negotiations take 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's a very complicated machinery.
Yes.
But anyway, I look forward to seeing my country's progress.
Yes.
That's fine.
And thank you for taking the time to explain it as much as we could in this short time frame. It was a very interesting discussion from my side as well. So thank you again for your time.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Unë jam Jeton Cini, piktor I cili prekosh kam punuar në zhanrin e artit abstrakt e tjera, por gjatë kohës që kam punuar më lindi një ide për të hapur një ekspozit me antikitetin shqiptar, me figurat cilat janë ndër vite njihen në historinë e Shqipërisë, Kam dashur dhe kam pasur si ëndër që të pasqyroj këto lloj figurash, duke filluar që nga Dardania deri në Ilirinë, Epirin e tjera, të cilët kam menduar që t'i realizoj artistikisht, duke hapas hapi, duke vazhduar me figura të ndryshme, historike, të cilat janë transmetuar në anën artistike të kompozimit tim. Ky është në Ilirinë e lashtë, ky është mbreti Gent, i cili në mbretërinë e tij përfshihet në një zonë të caktuar të Ilirisë. Dhe domethënë nga mënyra se si e kam perceptuar është parë ose dokumentuar nga disa monedha ose dokumenta të vjetra që me sa njohim në histori, dhe unë e kam transmetuar në mënyrën time, domethënë artistike, mbretin Gent.
Po, ku gjetën inspirim për pjesash?
Inspirimi është, domethënë,
Ti interes në historinë shqiptare.
Po, unë kam domethënë nga gjithë ideja e përbashkët për të realizuar të gjithë figurat në Iliri, domethënë ndërta është dhe mbreti Gent, i cili në historinë e arkeologjisë, në historinë e Shqipërisë, Ilirisë, domethënë të atëhershme, ka një rol të caktuar. Mbreti Gent ka dhe një veçanti shumë interesante, sepse nga mbreti Gent është njohur edhe bima gentiana, që quhet, është bimë shëruese, dhe ka marrë emrin nga mbreti Gent, sepse njihet që mbreti Gent ishte si një mjek, domethënë, përveç udhëheqjes shpirtëror i shqiptarëve. Kjo është është gjetur në qytetin e Arnisës, që sot është Babunja e Lushnjës, dhe është kalorsi, kalorse me kalë, është 2700 vjeçare, dhe ka vlera artistike të saj, por unë kam menduar që ta realizoj domethënë në pikturë dhe me atë si thua hënën mbrapa, si në një vallëzim të kalorsi, domethënë. Kurse kjo është inspirimi mbretëreshës Teut. Teuta ka pas qenë një ndër mbretëreshës shqiptare, që ka quajtur si thua mbretëresha e detit, ajo shumë pak ka mbretëruar, por figura e saj, e femrës, e forcës, së saj, e guximit e gjitha, më bëri që ta realizoj, domethënë, pak a shumë sipas atyre.
Është mithik?
Jo, është me spatull, është me teknikë të ndryshme, domethënë, të pikturës.
Shumë më pëlqen piktura jote sepse ka shumë ngjyrë.
Po.
E fortë, domethënë, fortë ka kuqe, dela, roza.
Duhet pak shpirt dhe dinamizëm që jep forcë pikturës. Domethënë shpreh dhe atë natyrën e figurës, domethënë forcës. Por janë dhe të thash që janë pak, domethënë, tematika dhe ëndrimtare, cilat të fusin në mendime të ndryshme, duke realizuar dhe me tematikën përkatëse. Domethënë të gjitha kanë atë veçantinë e tyre, nuk mund të them. Për shembull, kjo këtu është Sfinksi i Antigones, që është gjetur, është një pjesë e një skulpture të vogël, e cila është quajtur Sfinksi. Kurse kjo është, për shembull, Artemisa, është gjetur në Apolloni, në qytetin e Fierit. Artemisa simbolizon atë perëndinë e këtyre e kafshëve të egra. Është trajtuar në gjithë historinë lashtë, domethënë. Kurse kjo këtu, ai atje, është një ndër mbretë i lirë që quhet Glauk. Glauku ka një histori shumë të veçantë, sepse njihet për mbretërinë e tij shumë vite dhe për rritjen e Epiros, ish mbretit të Epirit dikur që e mori që të vogël e tjera me radhë, domethënë ka pasur shumë piktorë në histori që janë marrë me figurën e Glaukut dhe të Epiros. Dhe unë e kam vizuar në një mënyrë më të thjeshtë, domethënë të ti.
Unë e di është Deja, sepse vajza ime ka emrin Deja, edhe unë e di është një godes Edhe këtë gjetë bus një butrind.
Po, Dea është gjetur në Butrin, ndryshe disa kanë trajtuar dhe me emrin Apollon. Do me thënë, Dea gjehet në disa forma të ndryshme në Rom, në Athinën e lashtë dhe kurse në rastin tonë kjo është gjetur në qytetin e Butrintit. Është goxha figurë, do me thënë, interesante dhe kam menduar në këtë stilin tim ta paraqes. Më pëlqen Dea sepse kam dëshirë që ta punoj në disa forma të ndryshme dhe ka goxha, do me thënë, fantazi. Është një figurë shumë simpatike.
Ikonik.
Po.
Gjithë njerëz e di Dea.
Është goxha figurë e njohur dhe më pëlqen, do me thënë, ta pikturoj në mënyra të ndryshme. Brenda kësaj këtij stilit e gamës edhe historisë që përmban me vete. Ideja është që kontributi historik i këtyre veprave është njëra anë e saj, por për sa i përket artit pamor që unë bëj, domethënë është mënyra se si e sjell në kohën e sotme. Domethënë e transmetuar në anën teknike dhe kolorike të gjitha të tjera, por e bashkëngjitur me një pjesë të historisë së Ilirisë. Kjo sot ka një rëndësi ndoshta për shkak se mëson njerëzit ose frymëzon njerëzit me një rrugëtim i lirë, i cili shpreha të kaluarën në formën e vetë edhe sot, por e parë në anën më kontemporane, si thua, të realizimit dhe të perceptimit, sepse sigurisht që perceptimi i gjërave me vite, me kohë ndryshon, nuk është si dikur. Kjo është kurse këtu është në proces po bëj një kompozim të mbretëreshës në Fron. Mbretëresha në Fron quhet kjo skulptura, e cila është gjetur në pjesën e Dardanisë ose të Prishtinës që është sot. Edhe është një simbol i atyre, unë kam menduar që ta trajtoj në mënyrë më artistike, domethënë me atë stilin që kam menduar bashkëngjitur për këtë ekspozitë që do bëhet. Kurse këtu është afërsisht, domethënë arta e vjetër, Iliri, Dardani, domethënë sipas atyre dokumentave që njihen ose bën, dhe jam përpikur që nga ana artistike të bëj një realizim të tillë, që do jetë e bashkëngjitur me këto pikturat e tjera, me gjithë veprat që mund ta bëjnë të përbashkët si mendim në fund të këtij rrugtimi. Pra, në rrugtimin i lirë do të jetë edhe kjo si një pikturë e fundit.
Dhe unë kam dëgjuar ti ka lajme mirë për një ekspozitë në Qendër Kulturës Shqiptar në zemrës Bruxelles.
Po. Unë kam menduar që në qendër të Brukselit, në Shqivill, të hap një ekspozitë me këtë rrugtimin i lirë, i cili do të përfshijë rreth 15 punime, afërsisht, dhe do të jetë nga kjo tema për Ilirinë antike, me figurat të ndryshme, të shprehur në pikturën time.
Çfarë ditë është ekspozitë?
Ekspozita është parashkuar në datën 24 korrik deri në fund të gushtit. Shpresoj që të jetë një diçka e veçantë, interesante për të gjithë, si të bashkombësit tanë, po dhe evropianët, aq më tepër që Brukseli është nifet që është qendra.
Sepse Shqipëri është një grand place, edhe ka shumë turistë. Unë kam pas në Shqipëri shumë herë, ka promovimin për librin tim në Shqipëri, edhe kam njerëz nga gjithë botën, jo vetëm shqiptar, por shqiptar nga diaspora. Për mua është një ide shumë interesante dhe një vend shumë e mirë për ekzibit, sepse ka njerëz nga gjithë bota.
Dhe unë shpresoj që të jetë një diçka magjishme.
Good luck!
That's all for this week. You can watch Inside Albania every Saturday at 4 o'clock on Euronews Albania, on demand on our YouTube channel, Euronews Albania.
and of course on all major podcasting platforms. Until next week, Miropavchim!